just as I was preparing this lecture, a keynote speaker at last month's Conservative Party conference was none other than New York's own Geoffrey Canada, who talked about his work at the Harlem Children's Zone, which, as you well know, provides a range of social services to families and children and runs 2 charter schools. You will also know that Canada is one of the stars of Guggenheim's Waiting for Superman, a film that incidentally I see has just received a pretty damning review from Diane Ravitch in the New York Review of Books. Geoffrey Canada's speech neatly illustrates some of the points I'm now going to go on to make about policy borrowing and how it works. And I'm just going to play, before doing that, a short extract from his speech.
I was really very excited to come. I actually couldn't wait to come here because there are no 2 countries that have a closer relationship than the UK and the United States. And I really felt obligated to share with you what we're doing and what we're struggling with, except I almost didn't come because, and you're going to be a little upset with me, I was a little disappointed in you all. Couldn't you have done something about the Ryder Cup? I mean, come on. You know, we've been having a rough time in the States. We needed something, all right? When I told my wife I was coming here, she said to me, so Jeff, you're friends with President Obama and he's an education reformer. And I said, that's exactly right. And he's a Democrat. I said, that's right. And Mayor Bloomberg in New York City, he's an independent. And you're friends with him. And I said, that's right, honey, that's right. She said, and just last week, you were with the Republican governor of Newark, Governor Christie. And you say he's your friend also. I said, that's right, honey, that's right. She said, so please explain the Conservative Party to me. I said, well, I hear the education reformers, and if they are, I'm going to have a bunch of new friends in the UK. Here's why everybody in America is upset with me. I have been making sure our nation knows that we have lost our way, that we have allowed our country, the last remaining superpower on the face of the earth, to offer our children a third world education system. We have failed. We are not in the top 10. In many cases, we're not even in the top 20. If you look down the road and you say, what is going on in the U.S., you see a nation in decline that is quietly allowing itself to deteriorate because it will not face some tough truths. The fact of the matter is we have mishandled the education system in our country. And now we are at a fork in the road. And I am determined, even if the right, the left, the conservatives, the liberals, even if they all are angry at me, I am simply going to tell the truth. If you have a system that is failing your children, there is no way that you will remain in great power if you allow your children to get an inferior education.
On Canada's comments about common themes in the education policies of opposing political parties, Gove also spoke positively about the policies of President Obama. He said, in America, President Obama is pressing ahead with radical school reform to close the gap between rich and poor. He's promoting greater autonomy. He's offered extra support to programs to attract more great people into teaching, and he's encouraged states and school districts to provide greater accountability through improved testing and assessment. And only last week, US Education Secretary Arne Duncan was invited by Michael Gove to a breakfast meeting with key English education stakeholders, including sceptical union leaders, to persuade them that charter schools, or what we call free schools, are the way to go. And during Duncan's visit, the UK government announced the establishment of an education endowment fund to which groups could bid with ideas about how to turn around underperforming schools. And Gove explicitly compared this fund with Obama's Race to the Top initiative, under which states compete for federal cash, saying, "I have been impressed by what Race to the Top has done, and impressed by many of the things that President Obama and Arne Duncan have been fighting for." Even at the Labour Party conference this year, its first in opposition for 13 years, there were positive references to the US experience, especially KIPP schools, which had been visited by Labour politicians over the summer. It seems then that neoliberal and neoconservative education policies are not partisan in any narrow party political sense. In England, there's been considerable continuity, at least in direction of travel, between Conservative, New Labour and now coalition government education policies, while here the same is often true of Democrat and Republican policies. And nor is policy borrowing carried out along entirely predictable lines. Democrat administrations here have borrowed from Conservative governments in Britain, and, as we've just heard, vice versa. So, why policy convergence between the UK and the US? I mentioned some examples earlier. But my involvement in trying to answer the question why began with a paper I gave with my colleague Tony Edwards to the American Educational Research Association in 1992, which was partly based on my own policy tourism here in the USA, aided and abetted by my travel consultant and policy entrepreneur, Bruce Cooper of Fordham University, who some of you may know. He certainly managed to get things onto my itinerary that I wouldn't easily have accessed myself, including the White House under the first George Bush. That paper was substantially revised for publication in Comparative Education in 1998, and it examined the reasons for policy borrowing between the US and the UK, particularly in the field of school choice. It explored two different approaches to examining the apparent convergence of policy. On the one hand, it was direct policy exchange between the two countries through shared policy networks, some of which are reflected in the examples I've already given you today. In other cases, similar policies, or should I say similar sounding policies, could be identified, but without there being any evidence of knowledge on the part of the alleged borrower. We suggested in this connection, for example, that superficially at least, there were parallels between the assisted places scheme in England and the Milwaukee school choice experiment, between local management of schools and site-based management in the US, and between England's city technology colleges and the New American Schools initiative, which promised a new partnership between the private sector and government that would challenge those old assumptions about schooling that had maintained the public monopoly.